Welcome back to Christ's Table as we are continuing on in our journey through this study on peace. If you'd like more information about Christ's Table, you can visit the URL that is right there, www.christstable.today. My name is Kevin Young, and I have the absolute privilege of serving as lead clergy at Christ's Table. Now, if you'd like to know more about this study in particular, then right there is where you need to go, go.christstable.today/peace. And I'll tell you, at that website, you're going to find a couple of resources that are helpful for you, absolutely free. One of them is a list of every day of this study, as well as all of the study passages that are attached to each and every one of those days. There's also a PDF curriculum that goes along with this study that includes all of those passages, as well as an activity, kind of reflective activity, in fact, for each and every one of those days. And so I would encourage you to go ahead and download that there. And I'll tell you, in fact, I've got one right here. You can also get a hard copy of that free PDF. If you click on the page, on the button on that page right there that says get the box, then it will take you to a page that will give you a list of an entire set of spiritual formation resources that we are offering along with this study. That helps support the ministry financially. We actually send that box absolutely free, just out of gratitude to anyone who regularly gives to Christ's Table. But if you would like one of these in hard copy along with the rest of the things that are in the box, all you got to do is go to that page and click on the button that says get the box, and we will get it off to you. Now, the other thing that I want to make sure that you're aware of, and we've been kind of talking about this a lot around here, but people are just finally now finishing reading it. And so if you'd like to find out more about this book, Reconstruct Your Faith, that talks about my journey of faith through a dark night of the soul, and then the tools that I used in order to help strengthen my faith, give a healthier, more mature foundation, then all of that is here in this book. You can find out more information about that and links to get it at that URL, drkevinyoung.com, and would encourage you to go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and read the reviews that are there as well. And hopefully that will be a resource that will be helpful to you or helpful to other people who are going through doubts or questions or reforming of their faith, or just kind of needing to be jump started in their spiritual journey. So drkevinyoung.com. So what we're doing in this study is we are taking a journey, 32 different places in the Bible that mention peace. And we have been all over the text of the Bible. And we are continuing on that journey today as we look at a text in the book of Psalm, chapter 37, verses 37 and 38. We've been in and out of Psalm. We've been in the New Testament and the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament and back and forth. And one of the things that we've kind of been talking and hinting around here is that some of these books in the Hebrew scriptures aren't the same. They're not written for the same intent and can't be read the same way that you would perhaps the book of Romans, a very strict doctrinal book. And so what we do whenever we get to the book of Psalm is we realize that the book of Psalm is a part of a Jewish collection of books. And this is part of the reason why we know this and understand this, is because these books predate Christianity by a long shot. So we kind of go back to the original intent and the original understanding of these books in order to help us as Christians frame our understanding and our reading of these texts. And Psalms falls into a category of Jewish texts called wisdom literature. Now, in the Christian Bible, there are essentially 5 or so books that are a part of this wisdom literature. Psalm is one, and they are all there together around Psalm. Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon. These 5 books are wisdom literature, and none of them are intended to be doctrinal books. We talked about this a little bit with the book of Proverbs, how it is good advice. Oftentimes the things in there are great doctrinally, but they don't always hold true at all times for every person. So Job, Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon, these 5 books are trying to do something different than many of the other books in the Bible. For instance, the book of Psalm, being a part of this wisdom literature, is trying to impress or impose upon us a perspective of wisdom through song. The book of Psalms is a book of songs. This is the translation of the word psalm. If you didn't know that, welcome. The book of Psalms is a book of songs that was the Jewish hymn book, that was the Jewish song book. And so just as though you wouldn't necessarily take a song by Journey or Petra or Tina Turner as being um, fully true at all times in all places for all people, they all do communicate truth. And so what we look for whenever we come to these books, Psalm, Proverbs especially, is we try to look behind the scenes at what's the emotion, what's the intent behind what's being said or what's being sung here, and what can we get out of these words that have been written by other people, for instance in the book of Psalm, as song. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into today's text, and you're going to kind of see why I gave that intro as we get in here, because this is a bit of a sticky verse here. So here we go. Consider the blameless, observe the upright. A future awaits those who seek peace, but all sinners will be destroyed. There will be no future for the wicked. So we have here kind of, and we've pointed this out before, especially in Proverbs, this kind of dichotomy or this juxtaposition between two polar, opposite, or different things. The blameless and the wicked. This is kind of a classic black and white, classic juxtaposition in the text, especially in the Hebrew text of the Old Testament. Consider or think for just a moment about the blameless, the righteous. Observe them, watch them. A future awaits those who seek peace. Interesting that peace here is tied to the primary thing that will essentially communicate whether someone is upright or blameless, and it is the blessing or the reward for being so. And then the flip side. But all sinners will be destroyed. There will be no future for the wicked. So this has a future focus. Now, I have to admit, growing up, this would have been taken to mean, and I think was oftentimes taught as being a slam dunk, nail in the coffin, pun slightly intended, for a theology of hell, or a theology of the destruction of those people who are wicked. But actually, if you pay attention here, the word actually destruction is used, and most Christian Protestant theologies of hell do not include the idea of destruction. They include perhaps eternal conscious torment, but they don't include destruction. So this really is not at all a slam dunk for hell. In fact, this is kind of a slam dunk for the way that Judaism, ancient Judaism, and in fact, many of the sects of Judaism today see the afterlife as being annihilation. They tend to be annihilationists, that God essentially destroys, or that there is nothing, that the body or human goes to, either is destroyed or goes to Sheol, which is an Old Testament word that translates roughly to the grave. In the image, there is kind of a basement, a dark, dank, dirty place, not hell, but just some place underground where it stays, a place of nothingness. So that's really where most Jewish people would have been in the writing of this verse, believe it or not, as well as today, annihilationism, or that there is nothing afterwards, that the soul is destroyed, that this is it. So in that context, this is not at all a slam dunk for hell, and this is not at all speaking about hell, and can't really be twisted to do that, even just on the basis of the words that are used here. It just simply doesn't fit. The other thing that I think that we should point out here is that this verse really doesn't necessarily need or have to be taken in the hereafter or the afterlife at all. It's not clear at all that this is speaking of the forever or the eternal. All sinners will be destroyed. There will be no future for the wicked. In fact, most of the songs are not written in that way, right? Because they didn't think there was anything afterwards. So whenever it speaks usually about the future, it speaks about the immediate future within the lifetime, or within the generational span of several lifetimes, that things will be set straight. So all sinners will be destroyed, all sinners are going to be taken care of. It's going to have the wrong set right, not in a final judgment, but whenever God gets actively involved here. And there's no future in that. For the wicked, there is no future for the wicked because, well, go back to the beginning. Because they don't seek peace. So there is no future in living a life that does not seek peace. Christians would say eternally there's no future in that. But here in the Hebrew text, there's also no immediate future in that as well. So first of all, what we see here is this word peace, shalom, and we've talked a lot about the Hebrew text in the Old Testament, how it translates peace and how it sets itself apart really from the Greek and the New Testament understanding of peace and really goes much deeper into this idea of peace. And I might even suggest a much holier perspective on peace. This peace here that will be, well, let's just put it back up here. This peace here that is being spoken of, a future awaits. So for those who seek peace, what's being spoken of in peace is a kind of God-given and complete and secure wholeness that characterizes God's intention for this world and for those who follow him. So peace for those who seek this kind of wholeness, completeness in the world, a security in the world, who seek God's intention for the world, those are upright, those are blameless, and they shall have a future. Now, one other thing that I want to point out in this text is that what we see here, as well as throughout the Hebrew text, and maybe even the entire text of Scripture, I suppose, if we're speaking about it, but we're kind of limiting ourselves right now to the wisdom literature and to the Hebrew Scriptures. The success of the wicked is never allowed to undermine their confidence in God's justice and goodness. This is reminding people that no matter how it may seem or look that those who are peace breakers or peacemongers are succeeding, don't fool yourself. They are writing a destructive future for them. The Bible, over and again, through its writers, encourages us as followers of God to remember that the success of the wicked will never undermine God's justice and goodness, and we should never let it to allow our belief in God's justice and goodness. And I got to say, right, I mean, that's kind of easier said than done. I know that many times you look around at the people who are evil, who are doing bad things, who are bringing harm to the world, especially those who are bringing harm to the world in the name of God. And it really seems like things are going well for them, that the reward is great for doing that. And sometimes growing up, we might say things like, well, just wait until judgment. But the texts here and throughout the Hebrew Scriptures seem to indicate you're not going to have to wait that long. God's justice, God's goodness is a fact. And it will never be undermined. So don't allow yourself to get into thinking that and be the type of person who allows your peace to be disturbed or becomes a person who works for the opposite of peace, who becomes a destroyer rather than someone who is blameless and upright. That's our word from the text today. Our activity for today, right? Psalms is a songbook. This is a song. You may never have sung these lyrics in church or in synagogue, but it's a song. What song makes you feel peaceful? Is there a song that you listen to? Is there a group that you listen to that makes you feel peaceful? And draw it, describe it, write out the lyrics, spend some time in your study guide today, or spend some time on a separate sheet of paper if you don't have a study guide, working through this idea of music and peace and what music brings you peace. Maybe even put it on. Put those headphones in, put it on the stereo, listen to it on your computer as you are thinking and writing and praying and describing or drawing what brings you peace musically. That's all the time that we have for today. Looking forward to being back with you as we continue on this study. This is Thursday, so we will actually continue on this study on Monday, again next week. And so until that time, it's been good to be with you today. A reminder that you can grab all of the resources for this study right there at that URL, go.christstable.today/peace. And until tomorrow.